many people who have never visited the cold, rugged mountains of Kashmir may not fully understand why terrorists responsible for attacks, such as the Pehelgam massacre, managed to remain hidden for over 3 months despite intense military efforts to track them down. They may also wonder why it takes so long for the Indian Army to find and eliminate such terrorists. To answer these questions, it is important to appreciate the immense challenges posed by the unique terrain, climate, and nature of this region. The area where these terrorists survived, deep inside the Dachigam National Park near Harwan, is one of the most difficult and unforgiving landscapes in Kashmir. It is not just a simple forest or hill area. Instead, it is a vertical wilderness that rises sharply from roughly 1,600 meters to more than 4,000 meters above sea level. The terrain consists of steep, jagged ridges and deep narrow gullies, known locally as nars, which create natural corridors and hidden pockets where terrorists can conceal themselves from aerial surveillance and ground patrols. Thick forests of pine, oak, and birch form a dense canopy that blankets the hillsides. This canopy severely limits the effectiveness of thermal imaging and infrared sensors used by drones and helicopters. From above, the area looks like an unbroken expanse of green, but beneath that surface lies a complex maze of bushes, fallen logs, rock caves, and undergrowth that provides excellent natural cover. Even the most advanced surveillance technology struggles to detect human presence under such dense vegetation. Another major factor making it difficult to track terrorists in this region is the almost complete absence of human habitation. Dachigam is a protected national park, meaning there are no villages or civilian settlements nearby that could provide intelligence or report suspicious activity. This creates a zero human intelligence zone, forcing the Indian security forces to rely almost entirely on electronic surveillance, intercepted communications, and physical reconnaissance, tools that have limited effectiveness in such a challenging environment. In addition to terrain and lack of human intelligence, the harsh climate and geography work in favor of terrorists who are familiar with mountain warfare and survival. The terrorists responsible for the Pehelgam attack were able to live off the land, using natural water sources such as glacial streams flowing from Marsar Lake and the Dagwin Nala. They foraged wild edible plants such as rhubarb, nettles, wild garlic, and berries, and possibly hunted small animals or insects to supplement their diet. Initial dry rations like protein bars, dried fruits, and packaged foods likely sustained them during the early weeks, but as time passed, their diet became increasingly limited and subsistence-based. The forest and mountain climate are unforgiving. Cold nights, unpredictable weather, and scarce food make survival a brutal struggle. This was reflected in their physical condition when they were finally found. Emaciated, weak, and obviously having lost significant weight over the 3 months they remained hidden. The terrorists were not stationary. To avoid detection by drones and patrols, they moved frequently, every few days, between ridges, gullies, caves, and abandoned shepherd huts. Moving through such steep and uneven terrain is physically exhausting and requires significant endurance, especially at altitudes above 3,000 meters where oxygen is thinner. The journey they made on foot from Pehelgam to their final hideouts in Dachigam covered approximately 30 to 40 kilometers through some of the most difficult mountain trails imaginable. This was not a simple trek. It involved navigating steep inclines, deep valleys, and dense forests at high altitude, often in bad weather. To civilians unfamiliar with the terrain, such a journey might seem impossible. But trained militants with survival skills and mountain experience use this terrain to their advantage, turning nature itself into a shield. Tracking such small groups moving stealthily in this vast wilderness is a monumental challenge for the Indian security forces. Despite the use of drones, satellite imagery, thermal sensors, and intercepted communications, the militants' constant movement, natural camouflage, and careful avoidance of digital signals mean that the forces must rely on a combination of patience, intelligence gathering, and coordinated ground operations. In the shadow of the Zabarwan Mountains, where jagged cliffs plunge into pine-covered ravines and rivers hum beneath the trees, a different kind of war unfolded. It was not fought on open ground or visible front lines. It was silent, hidden beneath the canopy of the Dachigam National Park, a place where nature guards its secrets and even trained eyes struggle to see. For over 3 months, the terrorists responsible for the April 22nd Pahelgam massacre evaded one of the most intense manhunts launched in recent Indian history. They did not just escape, they survived. Not in urban hideouts, not across borders, but deep in the unforgiving wilderness, among snow-fed streams, wild predators, and the dense silence of the forest. Rock caves and dense undergrowth provide natural cover. Paths disappear overnight beneath moss and shrubs. The canopy above blocks aerial drones and masks thermal imaging. In this kind of environment, someone who knows how to live off the land can vanish. The men hiding here knew how to vanish. But how did they survive for more than 90 days in such isolation? When the security forces recovered their bodies after the final encounter, something was immediately clear. All of them had lost significant weight. Their faces were sunken, their limbs thin. Their bodies told a story of starvation and decline. These were not well-fed fighters. These were men who had lived off the forest, barely clinging to strength, waiting, hiding, surviving. In the early days after the attack, they likely had access to pre-packed dry rations, protein bars, dry fruits, powdered milk, and oats. But those do not last forever. As the weeks stretched into months, they were forced to forage. Dachigam offers wild rhubarb, nettles, garlic, and berries. Small birds or trapped rodents may have added some protein, but this is survival eating. The effort of moving through forest terrain, staying alert, and avoiding detection burns more calories than this diet could provide. Their only reliable resource was water. Meltwater streams like the Dagwin flow through the forest. They drank and likely cooked from these icy streams, but water alone cannot sustain life in the long term. They changed locations frequently, every few days, to avoid detection. Moving between ridges and rock shelters, they lit small fires, stayed under the canopy, and never used digital communication. That helped them stay hidden, but it also meant isolation, exhaustion, and a constant fight against cold nights and creeping hunger. By July, they were physically broken. Their ability to fight or flee was likely minimal, but they were still armed, still dangerous, and still determined. Indian intelligence had been watching. Signals intelligence had intercepted weak encrypted bursts. A nomad reported unusual movement near Lidwas. Patterns of movement, thermal scans, and human intelligence converged. On July 28th, Operation Mahadev was launched. The cordon was precise. The movement of troops was silent. A brief firefight ended it all. 3 terrorists were eliminated. Among them was Suleiman Shah, known as Musa Fauji, the man behind the Pahelgam massacre. They survived in one of the harshest environments in the Kashmir Valley. But survival alone is not victory. They were slowly breaking. Nature gave them cover, but it took everything in return. For 90 days, they became shadows in the forest. But justice followed, patiently and relentlessly. This was not just a military encounter. It was the end of a long escape. A story of desperation, isolation, and the quiet collapse of an operation that began with violence and ended in silence.